The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Camping Show. I'm C.W. Getz.
And I'm Willow Munson.
It is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. We have a sunny 55-degree day here in Illinois. I'm telling you, it was a beautiful day. I didn't think it was going to be this morning because, like we were just talking about before the show, a little 40s and all that kind of stuff. But it whipped right into shape. How about, where is it? What's it like where you're at, Will?
It's honestly still pretty warm. It's like mid 70s, but we had a really cool breeze. So it's starting to feel like fall finally in Pennsylvania. So I'm happy.
Fall in Pennsylvania. That sounds like a movie. Fall in Pennsylvania.
Fall in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, tonight's episode is brought to you by Campground Views, making camping easier.
And by Rutabaga Paddle Sports, providing time on the water.
Tonight's episode is Outfitting in the BWCA 2021 in Review with our special guest, Drew Brockett. Well, look, could you tell us a little bit about Drew, please?
Chicago native Drew Brockett is an outfitting manager at the Piragis Northwoods Company in Ely, Minnesota. In his free time, Drew takes advantage of all the many benefits of the Boundary Waters canoe area has to offer, like fishing, canoeing, camping, and a number of other outdoor adventuring activities. Drew joins us this evening to give us some details regarding the event that occurred in the Boundary Waters this summer and the effects thereof looking ahead to 2022.
Well, with that, welcome to the show, Drew.
Welcome, Drew.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's good to be back. It's been a while, but boy, a lot has happened. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's been, that was like last year, long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
At least 2020 seemed like a long time ago.
It was two full summers. So
yeah, 2 full summers.
Wow,
that's
a lot of summers.
Yeah, and I'll raise you a winter.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, well, I want to start off by asking you, how much of an increase has there been in tripping since we last spoke to you in March of 2020?
Well, that's when COVID pretty much took over,
Mm-hmm.
and you probably know this, being outdoors people, that the outdoor industry just went pretty much bonkers. And everybody wanted to get out into the woods and that kind of thing. And of course, this is just the premier, canoe country in the world, actually. And so it got busy up here, really busy. So a lot of people came up to the Boundary Waters from all over the country. And last summer was insane. And then this year was insane, except for a lot of things that happened, which toned it down a little bit, which we'll get to.
Right.
But it's I'll tell you what, it has been increasing for sure, especially with the love of the outdoors and people wanting to get out into the fresh air. So
yeah, it's funny what you say. The camping industry exploded, and everybody thinks that whoever's making canoes and who's ever outfitting, they're all millionaires now because everybody and his brother and cousin came up. And but not quite like that, is it?
No, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of backlog with a lot of stuff. So canoe manufacturers and stuff like that. So
yeah, we had Bear Paulson on, and he was saying I think they're backed up for like over a year with their canoe orders. So
that's crazy.
We got our order in, that's for sure. We need them for next summer. So
that's right. Yeah. Well, you had several major situations that occurred this summer. Can you tell us about how each of those has impacted the activity in the BWCA in recent months?
Yeah, definitely. I would probably say there are probably like 3 major things that happened. One would be fires, and then with fires and some other things, there was a drought pretty much up here. We didn't get the rain we usually get at all, and then due to all that kind of stuff, there were actually closures for the Boundary Waters, and that was just amazing. So for the fires, for instance, they can be anywhere, obviously. And there were a couple small ones at the start of the season and impacted a couple routes, that kind of thing. Kind of stuff you're used to, that kind of thing. More fires occurred as the season went on. One big one called the Greenwood Fire. That was actually outside the boundary waters, but it affected the boundary waters in a few ways by the smoke and the possibility of it traveling through the forest up into the boundary waters. So they had to be, they had to watch that. And then there was also a big fire in Quetico in the southwest portion, just north of Crooked Lake, which is a border lake in the boundary waters in Quetico. And that was actually a really large fire. And the Forest Service was really worried that it might jump the lake at certain spots if the wind was in the wrong direction or the right direction, whichever you want to put it.
Yeah, right.
So that was a major factor up in that area. And then there were a couple other, fires, again, one on the east side, that kind of thing. I focus on the Ely side of the boundary water, so we kind of say we're on the west side. That's probably what I'll talk about when it comes to that stuff. The drought was another big factor that created a major fire situation in terms of it was so dry. It was drier than I've ever seen up here for my time, and that was a big deal, and that caused low water, and you had to be extremely careful with fires, that kind of thing.
When you say closings, like certain parts were closed, I mean, how do they mark or how do you say barricade? How do you barricade in the water? How do you do that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, what they do is the Forest Service will make a decision, and they'll, like, for instance, the northwest part of the boundary waters with that Quetico situation, they actually close an area, a really large area of the boundary waters that could be affected. So they close it, and then what they do is they actually go out there with their crews and stuff and tell people you need to get out.
Oh, okay.
And then they will put up signs here and there, but it's not necessarily stationed there the whole time it's closed.
Yeah.
You need to not go in there when we tell you not to go in there, that kind of thing. So they actually go out there and try to clear it out. So because this is a different thing. I mean, if somebody's way out in the woods 2 or 3 days out, you just can't get out in the fire. It can go way faster than you're paddling. So
I can only imagine that. Yeah.
It could be scary. So
I remember I was up there last summer. It was like there was a line between Canada and the United States, but the yellow tape didn't exist. So, and I can say this now because I'm not there and they can't arrest me right now. Right? But it was like, I was like, oh, what if we go into the Canadian side and there's all this closure because the border was closed? So I was kind of wondering how they did.
So I have a question about the smoke, but before I get there, kind of building off of what you were just saying about people the rangers going and kicking people out because of the incoming fires and smoke. My family was actually camping in the boundary waters during one of this time and they missed them somehow. They woke up, or they didn't wake up, but it was really late evening and there was just a wall of smoke coming towards them across the water and everything ended up being fine. But there were a whole bunch of events that happened that I don't want to go into right now, but it was pretty intense.
Yeah. Wow.
But, so you mentioned this affects that the boundary waters are being affected by the smoke from other fires that are not actually in the area. So how does the smoke actually affect the boundary waters?
Well, it just makes it harder for some people to be out there. Some people have asthma and stuff like that. And then they actually we try to help route them where there's less chance of smoke. Obviously, smoke can travel a long ways. And if you're in the wrong path of the wind, which is what the main deal is, the wind direction. So you never can be perfect on that, but you can definitely route them to a different spot. But yeah, there were people who came back and said it was really thick that day, but the next day might be perfect. So you just never know. But it definitely affects you. It's you got to breathe this stuff, and you can't get away from it. So
what about the wildlife and the general ecosystem there?
Well, from what I've read over the summer with fires and stuff like that, they kind of have a natural way to get away.
Okay.
They just kind of know to get away from fires. Obviously, there could be some issues, but they just seem to have a sense. I mean, they're obviously wildlife, so they know what's going on out there. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure they can't get away from the smoke exactly if it's going the right direction. They can get away from fires.
And how does that affect visibility?
Yeah, it definitely does. Just even when I would come to town to work. There were a couple days Ely was just pretty thick with smoke here. So can you see? You can see, but it's definitely just a different thing. You go outside and you just smell it, and it just affects your throat and stuff when it's really that thick. But
Yeah.
you can see, but it's just because it's never like, what a winter whiteout or something like that. You can't see it in front of you. But yeah, it's really something to see the thicker smoke when it's around.
Can you imagine being on the water and having like Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water, and having where you couldn't see where you were going? Would that not be scary?
That'd be pretty wild.
I mean,
you couldn't see where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have, you do have falls there actually, in some places, but yeah, that could be like very, very dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you feel that like all of this will impact tripping activity in 2022?
Well, I think 2022 is going to be another big year. You kind of start over, because what's going to happen is we're going to have winter. It's going to really put out the fires. They're all pretty much under control now. It's not an issue anymore. But, that's going to just put it out. It's going to be great. We as outfitters need to get the information out that, especially this past year, the Greenwood Fire was not in the boundary waters. So, we're going to get some people who maybe didn't study it as much and say, I don't want to camp where the Greenwood Fire was, and it's, I don't want to camp in a blackened forest. But we need to just tell them it's okay. That's not what is happening this year. The fires just didn't impact the lakes that much in the boundary waters. Maybe a little one here and there. But overall, we're going to tell them, come on up. It's amazing. I think the biggest issue is we need some rain and some snow to get the water levels up.
Yeah,
that's
right.
The drought part. I mean, that's what we really need.
I think that it's in itself just lends itself to the validity of this episode. Is like, there's a lot of people go to the boundary waters, and if they don't know, or they're not keeping up with things, and nobody, this is not on CBS News, obviously. So, when people hear, they go, "Oh, wow! I thought the fires when they burnt the whole. I heard they burned the whole place up there."
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
How did they start? Actually, curious.
These were pretty much lightning. So,
what?
Yeah, it was lightning.
Wow.
For all these that I know about, people were good, but still you got to be careful.
Right.
But these were lightning strikes.
Wow. And because it was so dry, it went up like tinder. Oof.
Exactly. And like the Greenwood Fire, without getting into tons of details, it was so dry and so full of the balsam, which is a big problem up here.
Yeah.
It just took off. And then the southerly winds, which the Greenwood Fire is south of the boundary waters, the southerly winds just brought it north, and the smoke just went north into the boundary waters. So, it was this combination. It was just pretty wild.
So, like, what kind of details did we just jump over there? What kind of details? Let's get some details going on in this. Like, what kind of things specifically can you share like that?
Yeah. Well, like Willow mentioned the smoke. I mean, a lot of people talked about smoke, and that could be from any of the fires, but this one was a pretty big one. Some impacts outside the boundary waters for this trip, or this fire in the Greenwood Fire, was that it actually closed Highway 2 and Highway 1 to get to Ely from the North Shore or the Lake Superior area. So you could get to Ely the normal way from Duluth.
Is that how I took up as Route 2 when I went through? I bet it is. I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably went up to Two Harbors and then went north and 2.
That's exactly how it.
Yeah, you would not have been able to get through there. In fact, the fire jumped Highway 2 during that wind, and that was something. I mean, so there was some closures there besides boundary waters closures in terms of entry points.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other factor is closing entry points, and that's actually the worst thing that can happen for like outfitters or people.
Right.
Because the boundary waters is a permit-based place. There's only a certain amount of permits per day per entry point.
Yeah.
If they close a whole section, we got to either reroute them or cancel the trip. So it was a big issue for the outfitters here in Ely, including us.
Wow. Willow, have you ever been to the boundary waters?
I have a couple times, mainly when I was younger. I haven't really been in the past like 5 years, and I'm only 20. So, but yeah, I loved it growing up.
Yeah,
It's very different from anything anyone has ever done in Pennsylvania.
Beautiful place. Beautiful place.
Yeah.
I did not really. So when I take 2 up there next summer, because we're planning on going back next summer, which I'll be getting hold of you and making some
there you go.
plans. So Route 2 is not going to look very familiar to me then, apparently, huh?
The northern part, yeah, the northern area from Greenwood Lake up to Highway 1. You're definitely going to see what happened.
Wow.
I mean, I've driven down there obviously to check it out since it's happened, and you can tell. I mean, there was a fire there.
Wow.
So yeah, it's quite interesting to see. I mean, it's just part of nature, obviously. And
I mean, how long does that take to grow back?
Oh, I mean, there'll be things growing right away, like grasses and stuff like that.
Okay.
The trees obviously can take some time, but there will be some trees coming up.
Okay. Wow. So at least there'll be grass there.
Yes.
Wow.
And what kind of feedback have you received from people returning from their trip about the effects of the fire and the lack of water in certain places?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just mention the smoke again. Obviously, some people mention that.
Yeah.
But, some of the other things that happened because that were part of the drought were, I got a couple things to tell you. The bears probably didn't have a good berry season this year. So there were some bear problems this year in certain areas. Agnes Lake up the Moose River's notorious for that. And we would have people come back, and I had a guy lose his food the first day on a 7-day trip. He had to come out of the woods. He had no food.
Wow.
So a bear took his food. The proverbial, you hear pots banging across the lake, and it kind of moves from camp to camp, that kind of thing.
That's what's going on, right?
Yeah. And then for like the drought and low water kind of stuff, portages were a little bit longer. There were more rocks showing, so you had to take care of the canoes more and watch your footing so you didn't hurt yourself, that kind of thing. One very interesting thing happened this year that just I haven't heard since I've been doing this is we had somebody go out there and they went to get to a portage, and because of the low water, it just showed like more mud. And a guy got out of the canoe, and I'm not kidding. This is the story. When they told me they came back, the guy was stuck in the mud above his waist. He wasn't going to sink and die, but he couldn't get out.
Wow.
Drew, that happened to us.
Did it happen to you guys?
Yeah. I was just, why can't I think of our guide's name?
Linan.
Yes, Linan. We got out, we went to portage, and I was up to my waist and stuck, and she had to help me out of the mud.
There you go.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's common. I don't feel as stupid now.
No, it happens. But, it was wild to hear the story. They were going to call for help, and they'd just dig them out. They said it was tough. So it took over 2 hours to get the guy out.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was insane. And the woman who was leading the trip, that wasn't a guide of ours, but she had tripped for 40 times. I mean, she knew what she was doing, but you can't necessarily just see that you're going to go down in the mud and get stuck. So some guy, it wasn't her, but one of her trippers. So pretty wild. That was a good story, actually. When I heard about it, when they came back, I heard it in person,
I mean, what do you use a rope? Because I mean, actually, I think that's may have been what we did and pulled, and both of those guys pulled. What do you do? I mean, how did they actually?
They tried to dig the person out with paddles and stuff and hands and stuff. They could try to get as close as they could, and they used rope and tried to pull. They couldn't get the guy out. Finally, they were able to at least get his leg up a little bit, and then they pushed the canoe end so he could kind of get like on a canoe to get a little more leverage up there,
Sure. Yeah.
And eventually he pulled a leg out and was able to get the other one out. But literally, he said he was in there for 2.5 hours, and
I almost lost a shoe in my episode, but I think all things considered, I was pretty fortunate that I didn't end up like that guy. Yeah.
I bet there are a lot of shoes in the mud in the boundary wires.
No, I'm sure there are. Yeah. Because I mean, it was like hard to keep it on. I'm trying to get my foot. I go, these are the only portage shoes I have here. So yeah.
Well, we have a question here from Rachel. She says, when the forage is not good for the animals, like the bears, as we talked about earlier, does that leave the tendency for the animals to enter the towns and search for food? Or maybe even the camps of campers in the boundary waters?
Yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. There were certainly bears in town here in Ely and that kind of thing, and around the houses outside of town. So no question, they need to find food for their young and for themselves. So, like I said, there's some places in the boundary waters, some lakes that just kind of are noted for it. And with more people coming, and we need to get them, there's a lot of education that still needs to be done for a lot of people who are coming here. They might not keep a clean camp as much as they should as well. So that's another factor that does come into this. You got to clean your camp and have Ziplocs all over the place to zip your food up so it's not smelling. So a lot of combination of things creates that. But the answer is absolutely the bears can go anywhere,
I think if you're going to have food and be sloppy, then you need to put your stinky boots right next to those food items to deter the bears. Yeah, right.
That's a new way to do it.
I had a question. Cliff Jacobs has been on this show a number of times, one or two, right? He talks about food and tying food barrels in trees, and how he says it's just ridiculous. I know that goes against what everybody teaches, but I happen to follow that. Was the food that was stolen from that gentleman tied in a barrel or tied in a tree? He had his food barrel tied in a tree.
Yeah, you got it, and you got a good point. What Cliff said there. This guy had just gotten to camp, and I don't quite remember all the details, but he was setting stuff down. I don't know if he went somewhere just to get some water in the lake. I don't recall.
Oh, this was momentary kind of.
It was pretty quick. Yeah. Wow. So he came back, and his food was gone. So
that bear was watching him the whole time.
It could be. Yeah, and actually it was in one of the bear areas. So we warned him that those two lakes you got to watch it, But I'll mention one thing. This kind of has to do with the drought and all the stuff and what Cliff said in a sense. The Forest Service actually came out with something this particular season that later in the season that because of the bear issues and you want to be careful, they actually said you need to hang your food. There was actually an order created to do that.
An order?
An order. They made an order. We had to tell everybody to hang their food. I think if you had an absolutely bear-proof box or whatever, you could not hang it. But like the real popular blue barrels, they're resistant, so you actually had to hang them. So this is a real unique situation, but it was an interesting thing that happened where I don't hang my food, honestly, when I'm out there.
Right.
I would have had to this year.
I wonder what Cliff would have said to that.
Exactly. Like Cliff would have had to use all his knot skills and skills.
I don't know if he would even have done it. I can just see him going, I'm not doing it. I'm like, go, Cliff, go, man. There was something I was going to say. I can't. Oh, so the whole tying, you don't know if his food was tied to the tree or not, but it was in a barrel though. And the bear got into the barrel.
Unfortunately, I can't say it was in a barrel.
Okay.
I just don't recall. Sorry, I don't know the details, except he just came back the day of, and I said, what happened?
Did he come in and get some food and get the hell right back out there, or did he just go, forget it, trips over?
He just said, forget it. Oh. Some people do that. Some people would reset, but he just said, I'll go home. So.
But I drove for 10 and a half hours to get there. Yeah. I'm not going back home without.
Yeah, right.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be back with more of The Camping Show on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV after these messages.
It's time to go camping. Introducing Campground View's virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sites, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground View's virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "Well, we don't sell boats. We sell time on the water." Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutabaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on The Camping Show.
And we're back with our guest, Drew Brockett, here on The Camping Show. Roxy, can we have you put up Drew's photos and we can have him comment on each of them, please? Yeah.
Well, I mean, for people who don't know what the Boundary Waters is, it's just an incredible place to camp, real wilderness. In the Boundary Waters, you have to stay at designated campsites. They're not reservable, but you have to stay at the certain spots on the lakes. This particular shot, I happen to know it's from Steve Piragis. It's up in Quetico, where in Quetico you technically can camp anywhere you want. But the point is, this is just, you can just see the beauty. I mean, who wouldn't want to wake up to this or cook a meal looking at that?
You know, I forgot that's true, that in Quetico there is, they've got designated campsites, but you can camp wherever you want. I think that is kind of cool.
That's right, in Quetico, yeah. So, just another beautiful shot. This is from one of our clients. Took a trip in Quetico, again, another Quetico shot. But just to see the beauty. I mean, it's so incredible up here. And people need to come here to experience it. And like Willow said, it's just it's a special place. Nothing like Pennsylvania, I guess. But this is just an amazing place to paddle and camp. It's a different type of camping, but it's so worth it. Steve Piragis.
There's Mr. Steve.
That's our man. And, this happens to be, he loves to get out there, and he's obviously been doing it for a long time. But this happens to be just a shot that's a part of our company. We do something called the Boundary Waters Catalog. A lot of wonderful camping stuff and gifts and stuff. It's really fun.
Excellent catalog, by the way. Excellent.
Yeah, thanks. And it's so unique. It's so different than what you get. So it's a lot of fun. Anyway, this happens to be Steve. He's the man.
About that catalog, I'm sitting there going, I wonder how long it's going to be before they give in like everyone else and just go digital and don't print a catalog. Because I think it's so cool that you guys do that. That's cool. You may be one of the only ones that are still doing that. Am I right?
I mean, I'm sure it's just such a unique catalog. We like to do it for it's so special. I mean, we get people who call and say, "I've saved this for 5 years. Can I get another one?" We always send them out every year, but
and you always got new stuff you're adding to the catalog. So it's not like the same stuff. There's always new products being added to it. So it's very, very cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, C.W. It's pretty cool. Even though I work here, it's a great catalog. There's our, I guess you could say, our place in Ely. We kind of have a nice corner of the town there. We have our retail store, and we have a little restaurant called the Chocolate Moose that's open in the summer times. And then we have canoe storage, and the outfitters are back there, and an outlet, and a bookstore. We got a nice little place. If you're in town, it's a fun place to stop and check out. And
you said you've got a little restaurant in there?
There's the building next to us, the log cabin, actually, right next to us. It's attached. It's
okay.
It's hard. It's underneath the stoplight there.
How did I miss that? I mean, we went across the street for, I don't know what. There's a little shop, a food shop across the street. I did not know you had one there.
CW, it might have been closed that summer. There was a summer it was closed.
Okay,
so that's a possibility. There was some transition with the what was going to happen with it and that kind of thing. So that's probably last year.
Yeah, 2020. So okay,
yeah. So this is actually kind of exciting here. This is across the street from us, and we have just built a Canoe Warehouse, which is the gray building in the back, where we're going to store a ton of new canoes, because we're also a canoe dealer. And it's just so exciting to have this designated place for canoe sales. So the front building here with the little porch, I guess, that's going to be a display place. We'll have some canoes in there, and canoe and kayak accessories, that kind of thing. And our guys will be in there all summer. The 2 canoe salesmen helping people. You can walk in and look around, and they can walk you to the warehouse. This is really exciting. This is a whole new dynamic for us. So it's just so nice to see these buildings going up.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool.
So CW, this is Highway 2.
Yeah, that's how I remember it.
And, you can really see that the fire, this is where it jumped, obviously. It jumped across the highway there. And,
Man, it's a beautiful drive, by the way.
oh, absolutely.
Or
And
it was.
still-
I don't know.
and it still is. But it's real interesting. This is right after a forest fire, and the picture doesn't do it justice to come and see it, but it's something.
Well, hopefully it doesn't look like a bunch of goalposts now, and that, you know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, there's definitely some places that burned hotter and it changed. This is just, like a typical campsite out in the Boundary Waters, tucked in the woods, and a lot of times it's nice granite rock up to the campsite for a nice place to sit and to land and eat your food and stuff. So nice little campsite tucked in the woods there.
That looks very familiar. And I know that a lot of them look alike. I know a lot of them look familiar, but that looks very, very familiar.
I mean, I can't tell you where this is, so it could be where you went. You never know.
I think it may be. Yeah, it looks very familiar.
Wow.
Beautiful shot. I think this is up on Knife Lake, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure. Up at the top of one of the tiny hikes you can take in the Boundary Waters to go up high and get a view. And just the beauty is just incredible,
Yeah.
When you can get a high view, sometimes it's pretty nice. There's not tons of high views around here, so it's pretty nice.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
This was just one of our guides went out on a day trip. We do that a little bit, and beautiful day. Cloudy days are so beautiful. Look at the just incredible.
Water almost looks like glass a little bit. I know there's a little bit of ripple in there, but it really quite still.
Yeah, this was a calm day. The guy took him out to Hegman Lake here. So that's what this is, Hegman Lake, and he calm day. And as you know, wind is a big factor up here in terms of canoeing. So if you get a calm day, it can be a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Well, it happens to be me.
He looks familiar. Who is that?
I do a lot of my trips with my uncle, and this is just one of our little places set up the tarp. This happens to be on, I believe it's on Alice Lake in the Boundary Waters, and we did happen to be cooking up some hash browns and some walleye that evening.
Oh wow!
So nice little evening.
Nice sturdy stick in the middle there.
Yeah, found a good one and got it up there, and good memories.
You leave those little nubs on there so you can hang things. Am I right?
Oh well, yeah, you can exactly. I mean, you never know. I mean, you might want to hang something there. Seriously.
That's what we did. So, yeah.
Well, let's see if this should be a good question for you guys. Who's the guy sitting in the chair?
That looks like Mr. Jacobson.
There you go. So Cliff's he's been associated with us for quite a while. He's helped us design our canoe pants and some other things that we have, and recommend some items. But we also do a canoe trip with him each year. Usually each year is what I should say. And this happens to be one we call it the Cliff Steve trip. He goes out with another one of our guides. And just a fun little thing. You can see Cliff's obviously had his hands on the tarps there, how he's kind of...
I was just going to say that. I don't think you can get a tarp any more square and straight than that.
Exactly.
Wow.
So just a lot of fun. It's one of the guided type trips we do. And just a fun bit here with Cliff there.
Yeah.
Now you get a kick out of that.
Definitely.
Fires, this kind of fire is such a nice thing to have out there. It's what some people come up for, to just enjoy that, overlooking the lake. They cook, a lot of times people cook their food over it.
That's a steak fire right there.
Probably.
That's a searing fire right there.
This is from one of our guides, and he loves to cook on the fire, so he's probably getting it ready for steaks. Quite honestly, he does a lot of steaks and vegetables and stuff. So, but you can see the view is just incredible just to be out there.
Yeah, those are some gorgeous photos.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have there been any permanent changes, such as restrictions, that have been implemented as a result of the fires that have occurred?
Willow, there have not been permanent things. It just goes like summer by summer, in terms of actually closing things, but just because they closed a little area doesn't mean it's closed forever. So they didn't do anything permanent, but there just are things that happen each year based on what's going on, And once a fire's out, they'll reopen it. So that kind of thing. And like that food hanging thing I mentioned, real unique, and I doubt it'll happen next year, at least to start. But so nothing permanent.
I don't know if you mentioned this, and if you did, I apologize. But for those who don't know, Quetico, you can get to Quetico now, or is there, what's going on there?
Yeah, so it gets a little tricky. Quetico is obviously a big park in Canada. Mm-hmm. The northern part is accessible from Canada up by Atikokan, and there's a highway up there.
Okay.
The southern border is the Boundary Waters border for the most part, and they call it a remote border. So you can't just cross the remote border. Quetico is basically closed this year for the most part. I don't want to say that exactly, but closed almost for the U.S. side. So you can't. It's a real tricky situation right now, because to go through the remote area, like through Moose Lake here, for instance, to go in the south, you have to get an RABC permit through the Canadian Customs. They shut that down for the year. So without getting too much into Quetico, it's a wait and see what's going to happen next season in terms of the border closure and stuff like that. I mean, I guess they reopened it.
Okay.
You could drive around through like International Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And come in from the north, but at the moment you wouldn't be able to go through like Ely and go the normal way we send
do
people.
That. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah,
it's real. There's some technical. Anyone can call me and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say. I mean, if people wanted to know that, what would they do? They could probably just call Piragis and say, "Hey, what's the deal?" And you'll let them.
We'll tell you what we know so far. Yeah. It's a lot more technical, and there's a lot more government stuff with the borders and stuff. So.
Yep.
What advice would you offer those who are planning a trip to the BWCA in 2022?
Well, the biggest thing is, something that CW mentioned is that you are not, we got to get the information out. The place didn't burn down.
Yeah, right.
It's just so important for people to know.
Well, it's not the Chicago fire, right?
No, exactly. It's still awesome.
Right.
That's not even an issue. But it's always earlier the better to plan your trip. So like right now we're starting to think 2022. We're just finishing up our season. We have a couple canoes in the woods right now, just guys who are doing late October trips. But you want to plan earlier. It doesn't mean you have to call next week, that kind of thing. But the longer you wait, the less permits are available, the less of the better permits are available. That's a real key. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can be so busy, canoes can be a real problem. Yeah. Basically, that's the main thing, you guys, is that the earlier the better. One thing about the Boundary Waters, the permits, you can't get the permits for the Boundary Waters till later January. However, if you're an early planner, you can book a trip anytime. Like
it lends itself a lot more flexibility if you put in early, like you're talking about. I think maybe
absolutely.
Yeah.
We can talk more routes and stuff like that. Yeah. The people who call in, August 1st or an August 15th, that could be a big problem for permits. They might get the really hard permits.
Yeah. I think, what's funny? You guys really accommodated us, because I think we ended up changing our plans, changing routes when we were up there, and you were able to do whatever you guys do, which was fantastic. And we had to get some different permits for the reroute that we. In fact, we rented little John boats put the canoes on the top, and we took a John boat way out in a place that I was like, oh wow, I like this too. This is a cool experience.
Yeah, you probably took the towboat ride. So yeah, that's another thing. That's cool.
Yeah, and then we loaded them on a truck, which was cool. Yeah, flatbed truck. I go, wow, this I've never, yeah. I learned some things on that trip.
Yeah, that's cool. But thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we try to make everybody happy as best we can.
Yeah, you definitely accommodated us, and I mean, I can't say enough about that. Well, in speaking along those lines, let's revisit the topic of guides from the last time that you were on the show with us. So, what type of people do you see hiring guides for their trip? I mean, is it just the first time trippers, or do experienced trippers also utilize services of a guide?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's actually a mix. we have people who take the same guide every year. They just become friends. So they just want to get out there with them and keep on learning and just see what's going on. So there are definitely those, but there obviously are a ton of newbies who want to come out here and feel better about what's going to happen out there with people who know what's going on, who can make decisions if it's rough weather or rough water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't paddle every day if it's too windy. Somebody needs to say we're not moving.
Yeah.
So it's just it could be anybody, but so I know that kind of it's not a specific answer, but and you can take guides on your own trip. So if you have your family and you want to just hire a guide, they can go with that. But we also offer what we call guided group trips. So we have a few of them, a handful of them every season at certain dates. And that would be a way to just you'd call joining a group. So, the guide cost is spread out through everybody joining. So, like that cliff shot you saw earlier, those people were from all over the country, and it could be single people, solo people. They could be a couple. It could be a couple of guys who just want to come out. So, you see, there's a lot of ways to take guides, but the guides are another part of that early booking.
Yeah,
there's a limited amount of guides.
Well, I can tell you, and I'm gonna plug her, but Lynn Vesper, I would hire her again in a heartbeat. She was awesome. And
that's good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, she put up with us, and that was and my partner was a photographer from Maine, and really, I mean, she did an amazing job. And Lynn Ann, I'm talking about Lynn Ann here. What I really enjoyed, and I don't want to go too much in this, but what I really enjoyed was the fact that I can relax. I don't have to look at a map. I don't care. I don't have, any of that kind of stuff. Here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to do this, this, and this, and this many days, and end up here, whatever. And we'd like to see this kind of thing or whatever. And that's what we did. I didn't have to worry about anything. All we had to do was, help with the meals and the dishes. And of course, pack your stuff and blah, 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 and, tents up and down. And that sort of thing. And she was very helpful with the portages, extremely. That's where I got stuck in the mud, by the way. Anyway, yeah. And honestly, I would do it again in a heartbeat. In fact, when I go up there, I think next time we're going to actually have her back if she'll have us.
She's still guiding. She was out a ton for us last summer. And if you don't mind me mentioning something about, because you've done this obviously with a guide.
Yeah.
Even if you're with a guide, there's still work. This is not just camping at a car camping place. I mean, you are still working. You got to get where you're going. So this is one of those experiences when you finish it, you just feel like, man, I worked hard and I did it. And, some loops are bigger, some are easier trips. It doesn't matter. You still have to work on portages and paddle and set up your tent, take it down. So this isn't just sitting around. I mean, it's a hands-on thing, even with a guide. So
it's not room service, man.
Exactly.
It's exactly. Yeah. But anyway, okay. I just got a message here. Something weird just happened with my mic after. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Did you guys hear me, or did I cut out there or something, or no?
You were fine. You just got a little loud for like 2 seconds.
Oh, I do that sometimes. I'm sorry. But yeah, go ahead, Willow. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say that we have a little comment come in from Bushman613. Good day. Better late than never. So just want to thank you for that little hello. And so we're talking about guides. And obviously, like, a guide can be like more of an investment opportunity because you're learning a lot with this experience. You're learning how to the best ways to portage, what to look for in a campsite, and all these things. So the question has to be asked, what does it cost to hire a guide for, like, let's say a week-long trip?
Yeah. So for us, a guide it's $300 a day. It doesn't matter if you have 2 people or 8 people,
20 people, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and it's $300 a day, and obviously the more you have, you can divide it or spread it out more, that kind of thing. That's kind of where that guided group thing comes in. If you don't mind, camping with more people, meeting people, that kind of thing.
Very affordable.
But if you have your own guide, you're also the guide is focused on you specifically, your family. So that's one thing about having your own guide. But Yeah, it's 300 a day, and they just just enhance a trip in so many ways, whether it be storytelling and cooking and tricks of the trade and paddling technique, all that stuff. So
what I thought was cool was she brought some really cool snacks that I wouldn't have packed, but I'm glad that she did because oh wow, yeah, this is cool. This is what we needed right now,
Yeah, that's another part. I mean, the guides who've been here for years, like Linan and some others, they'll bring things from their garden. Or they'll go to the store quickly before the trip and grab a few extra things that we didn't put on the menu, so to speak. So
absolutely,
they want to have a good time. And it's a nice thing too that since we're talking guides, it's not only it's nice to tip them, because this is what they're doing in the summertime. So even though there's a $300 fee, a little bit has to go to the outfitter for some cost stuff,
Sure, of course.
So it's nice to tip them, and as you know, they work hard and they are super nice, and just make sure you have a good time.
Absolutely. I think we met her approval with our tip. I wasn't stingy with that. I thought, you know what, you did an excellent job. You got to get an excellent tip. So absolutely.
I just like to mention that because just it's a little more on the expense part of the trip. It's because it's just a nice thing to do, and almost everybody does obviously tip
absolutely.
them. But sometimes I have to mention it just to make sure you should do it, everybody. It's this is what they're doing this summer.
Absolutely worth mentioning. And your guide's going to want to take you out again. It's like
sure.
These guys tipped me well. They appreciated what I did. So it's kind of a mutual feel the love sort of thing, right? You like that?
Love. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So where can our viewers and listeners go to follow Piragis Outfitters and to inquire about booking a trip at the Boundary Waters?
Yeah, so I saw a couple times here. I think there you go. There's our site. Yeah. That's our main site for outfitting, that kind of thing. So that would be a great place to go for information, to fill out a form. We can send you a packet. Obviously, our phone number's on there. Give us a call. We've got 3 outfitters here year round. Me and a couple other guys, Adam Mocht and Tim Barton. So they can call 7 days a week, and one of us will be here at least to talk routes, to just they ask us anything, just to know what they're doing. But, we're obviously have our website. We're active on Facebook and some other things like that. We have a YouTube channel with some, things on there. So, but this, the website and our phone number, just to call us to talk about stuff, is the way to go.
Absolutely. In fact, as I understand it, they pull you right out of church to take calls.
I mean,
on Sundays, right?
We got to take care of these people and get them up here. So,
God, I'll be right back. Hey, I want to pop in here real quick. Bushman 613 and Mustang 774. You guys, loyal viewers, and chiming in here with us. We really appreciate you guys tuning into the show. I wanted to say that before we sign off here, but. Well, Drew, we'd like to thank you here for being our guest on the camping show this evening. It was a pleasure having you with us. This
has been great. It's so fun to talk Boundary Waters. It's such a passion of mine. I want people to understand how wonderful it is. So just come on up and give it a try. It's the best way to do it.
Highly recommend that as well. So good deal.
We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Campground Views and Rutabaga Paddle Sports, for bringing you tonight's show.
Be sure to tune in for next week's episode, Curious by Nature, with our special guest from last season's ABC television series, The Bachelor, Miss Kendall Long.
Until then, thank you for tuning in to The Camping Show.
This is C.W. Getz
and Willow Munson,
reminding you,
learn more,
do more. See you next week.
Bye.